What's on, minifans? All this scenery made and no transportation? Let's start to fix this now by making a landing pad. Oh, with a movable ramp. As always, like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy the video, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date with my content. Enough of that. On to building. We start off by printing the template on cardstock and then cutting it out using a sharp knife. Keep a sharpening stone to hand. The link's down in the description. Oh, and of course, mind the cat. Template's all cut out now. What we do next is put it on some baking paper, slather it in PVA glue, and then whack some of that sculptor's mesh down on top, trying to keep it as straight as possible, and then another layer of baking paper and a weight on top. Before you glue the mesh onto the template, just trace the template out onto, for me I use 2mm chipboard, but definitely trace that out and then you can cut that out. The mesh is all glued on now. What we do next, we want to raise this off the chipboard, which will be the base. So I'm just using some offcuts of 3mm chipboard this time, and I do a double layer because I want there to be a decent gap. So that's 6mm, which is about the same size as, well, the drinking straws I have. This could obviously be adjusted. So you can see what I do here, and then I just glue all this down with PVA onto the chipboard base. Alright, so we're on to the little panels which will get glued on later, and you'll see there's a little cross in or a little dot in each corner, and that of course is for a rivet. So riveting time. Fingernail jewelry, bead things, whack them into place just using my finger. You see how easy it is, and then a little dab of super glue with a cocktail stick and just maneuver into place. You'll see here 3 in a row glued into the wrong place. They glued too quickly, so I have to ping them off with a knife and then redo them. Last 2 bits of a template I'm going to do as hazard stripes. Obviously it could be done as anything, but I prepare them now by Mod Podging them. Base is all dried now, so back to that, and we're going to put in a load of details. I'm just using various straws cut into lengths, but especially the bendy part of paper straws. And then I also use these little cogs, which I raise up a little bit on chipboard. And then I just glue all these bits and pieces in. Next up, I want to paint the inside details, because obviously when you put the roof on, you won't be able to get to them. So I base coat black or prime black, and then I give a dry brush of silver. Then I paint all the pipes or the straws red. While that's drying, I paint the little cogs a kind of old gold colour. And then I go back to red, give it a dry brush of orange on the topmost surfaces. off camera, I've painted the underside of the template with the mesh on black, because you won't be able to get to this and you might be able to see some parts of it, so I just wanted to make sure. But then what we do is cover it in PVA and stick it on to the chipboard base using something with a flat edge to line it up on all sides. I'm sorry about this, my camera wasn't, the camera stand wasn't tightened up properly and it slowly lowers during this part. The hazard stripe panels are now dry for Mod Podge, so we go ahead and base coat these black. Now what I've actually done is blue tack them down onto greaseproof paper or baking paper. Then after the black's dried, I masking tape them up and then sponge on white, wait for it to dry, sponge on flesh tone, wait for it to dry, sponge on yellow, and then satisfying bit, peeling off that masking tape, no leaks, all good. So then as a final touch, I just sponge on a few flecks of black onto some of that yellow, so it looks like the yellow sort of chipped off. Trim time. My trim that I cut for this is 9mm, but it depends on what you put as a riser inside. So I've just cut all these bits of trim, you can see, and then just cover them in PVA, whack them on, wait for it to dry. Getting there now. Next up, we glue all those rivet panels on top, so just a load of PVA, whack them down, make sure they're all lined up with the template, and then baking paper on top and away. I'm not sure what you call these bits, but they're these kind of movable, although in this case they'll be glued on, but these kind of movable flaps on the sides of the landing pad. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments below. But what I'm using for these is some kind of food container, so I've drawn some guidelines out with a permanent marker, cut them out with scissors. I've also cut out two smaller bits of the sort of detailed parts of that packaging, and these get glued on to the top in between the mesh grates. To mount those flaps, I just cut some lengths of straw, and it's just a tiny bit bigger than those, and then glue those on. To mount those onto the actual landing pad, what I've done is make this little chipboard piece, and I just cut out one and then just use that as a template to cut out two for each flap, and then these get glued on to the side just using super glue. Onto the legs of this landing pad, very simple. I'm just using those hair curler roller things, and I just cut out a bit 4 times, and then this just gets initially hot glued onto the bottom, but then I also reinforce with super glue. Honestly, this bit was a bit of an afterthought, because I was looking at this and thinking those flaps don't look quite right without anything on like the outside, so I just used some of the offcuts of those hair colours, and I cut out some of those curved sections and glued 2 onto each of the flaps. onto the ramp now. I have a few different bits. I have two sizes of straws which fit perfectly inside each other, or one inside the other, and then the inside one fits perfectly into those white bits. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but yes. I want those white bits to have a wire going into the actual body of the landing pad. So I drill holes in the ends, and I just score a hole first, or drill a small hole with my craft knife and then pin vise, so my wire fits perfectly into that. Then I drill a little hole in the landing pad side. Then I decide I want something else there on the actual landing pad hole. I've got that speaker cable, and I chop off, it's maybe 3mm, and then poked out the actual wire from inside, and this slots perfectly onto that wire. For the ramp itself, I've cut a bit of chipboard. It's 7 by 8 centimeters, and then I cover this in PVA glue, and I have 5mm trim, cardstock trim, around the outsides, and a 1 centimeter bit down the centre, and then 2 bits of that mesh whacked down, and then a weight on top. Top of the ramp, again, piece of card, 7 by 8 centimeters, and then I've drawn some lines, so it's a centimeter border and then a 2 centimeter strip down the center, and I cut out these kind of 1.5 centimeter gaps on either side. And then after that I chuck on a couple of rivets at the top and bottom. I'm planning on putting cable ties either side of that ramp, and for them to join onto that straw I want to add something slightly more. So I've just cut another couple of sections of straw about the same width as the cable tie, and then I've cut it across so I can put this on top of that straw, like the axle straw, and then I super glue these in place. I then glue that card piece onto the other part of the ramp, just with PVA glue and making sure all the edges are flush. The ramp's all dried now, so now I attach it to that straw, and I just prop it up on some chipboard to the correct height, and then super glue the straw on, and then super glue cable ties down either side and snip them off. I've realised I need to put something on the underside of that ramp, so I just use the offcuts of the cable ties. They go either side, and then the offcuts from the card part of the top of the ramp, they get put horizontally top and bottom. And then I actually cut another piece of card and lop the corners off and bend it round some of the straw and glue that into place. This is all glued with PVA. Painting time. I Mod Podged all the card bits and then spray primed it black, and then I start off with a heavy dry brush of silver. Awesome. Time to attach the ramp. So I get it to the right height using some stuff underneath. Doesn't matter what. I've put it all together, and then I glue the previous white bits on, and then I made these extra couple of sections which I then super glue on top of that, and I attach the wires as well. Sorry about this, but the reflection is quite intense on this bit, so you can't see exactly what I'm painting. But I'm going with a dark grey and doing the main sort of body section on the top at least with this. And I'm kind of painting it scratchily, going kind of up to the edges, leaving some of the silver showing through. It's the channel Scratch Bashing is his method, and I think it does look awesome. Then I do a similar method on those riveted plates on the top, but using light blue this time. And I do several coats of the grey and the blue. After all these base coats are dried, I start dry brushing using a makeup brush, and I do a lighter grey sort of towards the centre of all the grey parts, and then the same with the light blue on those rivet panels, just more in the centre, a very light blue. Then add those hazard stripes, and I just glue these down with PVA. Then after that's dried, I go in with my black wash, which again is water, black acrylic paint, and just a drop of dish soap. So I whack this on all the coloured parts and some of the metal, and then dab it off with some tissue paper. Once the wash is dry, I go in with rust effects, so I'm sponging on burnt umber, waiting for that to dry, sponging on orange over the top, and I just do this in a few small areas. I then go in with some homemade brown wash, same recipe as before, just with burnt umber instead of black paint, and I go around those rusty spots and then do some stains in various places. As a final touch, I just do some sort of oil stains with watered down black paint. And there we go. Job's done. Here's some photos of the finished piece. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and see you in the next one. Cheers for now.